to Career Uprising. I'm your host and professional career coach, Lorraine Rise. Join me as I guide you through an amazing journey of self-discovery and empowerment. If you are looking for work, changing careers, or stuck in a toxic job, then this is the show for you. I offer both practical and spiritual guidance to help you up-level and advance your career. Let's start the uprising. Hey everyone, you are listening to episode 75, Working Mom Guilt. As I always say, please take a moment before we get started and hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts or however you like to listen to the show. I really appreciate you subscribing, and you will get notified right there every time you open the app of a new show. So it's a great way to stay in touch and never miss an episode. So speaking of that too, I want to thank you guys and share with you how much this show is growing. So my producers and my founders here at Inflow Radio keep telling me how well the show is doing. We hit a milestone last month in February of 1,000 downloads for the month. I'm really excited about that, so thank you. That may not sound like a whole lot. I know there's shows out there that probably get a lot more downloads than that, but I don't care. I'm really proud of what I have accomplished in less than 2 years. You know, podcasting is one of those things. It's a slow burn. You know, it takes a long time to build an audience. The payoff comes down the road. So you have to be really consistent with it to build an audience and listeners. And I feel like that's really what's happening. The numbers just go up and up and up. And I had been wanting to hit 1,000 downloads in 1 month, and we did it in February. So thank you guys. That tells me that the message is really resonating with people, and more people are listening every month. So thank you for that, and share this podcast with anyone else who you feel may benefit. So I really love that. I love the reviews. I read every one. They make a huge difference. So thank you to those who have gone and done that as well. So we've been off to a really good start in 2020. I've done a lot of interviews, actually, more than I normally do. We've had a string of really good ones. And if you missed last week at all, you need to listen to it. And I say that not for self-serving purposes at all. It truly is a special show that I just did last week with Dan Launer. He was a client of mine. He did the Career Jumpstart program, and he's got a really good success story to tell about leaving his job and taking a short break from the working world, but bouncing back quickly and better than ever. So it's a must listen for anyone who has thought about quitting their job. And I know you have, right? Most of us probably have at some point. So, but yeah, when this show airs later in March, I'm going to be just days away from another awesome international trip with my family. I'm so excited. I've said it before on this show that part of my 2020 vision for myself includes more travel and just more amazing experiences and memories with my family. So, and travel is something I didn't really have the opportunity to do at all when I was younger. So I've really made it my mission to change that for my daughter. She's got a passport and she knows how to use it. So we are really counting down the days until the end of March when we get to go to Key West and the Bahamas, and it's just going to be amazing. And I still pinch myself sometimes when I look back on my career and just realize how far I've come and what a life I have built for myself in order to get to this place where I can travel and work remote and have this really fluid, flexible life that is very much by design, not by chance. And it ties in a little bit with what I want to talk about today, which is guilt. This is something that I've not really talked about at all, but it shows up sometimes in our careers. And We feel sometimes, I think, like success comes at a cost, and sometimes it's an emotional cost. Sometimes we reach a certain level of success, but there's guilt. Am I allowed to have this? Do I deserve this? Am I sacrificing something else to have this? It's an emotion that we all feel. It's natural to feel guilt for different things at different times. But, and it's not an emotion we typically, I guess, associate with our jobs or our careers, but really it's there. It shows up there. And I titled the show Working Mom Guilt just because that's so much of a thing. It's so identifiable as an issue with women. But I will say that it shows up for everyone, right? I have no doubt that there are dads out there who feel guilty for certain things, maybe in their careers, maybe for having a demanding job or not spending as much time with their kids as they would like to. I definitely think the distinction is that it comes a lot easier for women, right? The guilt comes really, really quickly. Maybe the job doesn't even have to be demanding necessarily. Sometimes I think women just feel guilty just for having a job. That's enough to trigger the guilt. But we all feel it. It's there. It's a human emotion. It's there for all of us in varying degrees, I think, and in different situations. So basically, I'm talking to everybody, but I want to kind of focus in, being that I'm a mom myself, on this idea of guilt as a working mom and how it shows up, why, and what we can do about it. And I'm going to share with you a little bit about my story and my journey. As I was just saying, I've gotten myself to this place where I have this wonderful, flexible, rewarding career, but I also have a young child. So certainly there's been more than just myself that I've had to take into consideration as I've crafted out this career for myself. So let's dig in here. What are we guilty for? What is this emotion really about? I think that guilt is what you feel anytime you feel like you are not living up to an expectation. Okay, so somebody expects you to be or do something and you can't, or you don't want to. There's something in the way. And that someone could be society in general, or it could be a spouse or a boss. But as soon as this happens, there's a void that's created, right? Now we feel bad because maybe we're meeting one obligation, but it seems to conflict with another. It's like, okay, I can meet this obligation, but it comes at a cost. So I can't win. We're trying to balance it all. We're trying to win in every scenario. Can we do that? What do we do about this? Well, I think what a lot of people do in response to this conflict of interest and this tension is we carry the burden ourselves rather than adjusting expectations of other people or ourselves or drawing boundaries. We just carry the burden ourselves, sometimes silently or sometimes through complaining, but we just hold this guilt with us and feel it. And sometimes a lot of emotions, guilt is one of them, becomes subconscious. You're just so used to carrying it. Every day, you might not even think that it's there. It can be subtle, or it can be more obvious. But I think we do see this manifest a lot in moms who are balancing work and home, right? So we're expected to work and fulfill all of those expectations. But then we have to do the same thing when we get home, right? It's like our second job that we come home to. And if we don't do it all, then we feel guilty, like we've done something wrong or let someone down. Some parents might even feel guilty just for the fact that they're working and putting their kids in daycare and someone else is watching their kids. That can bring guilt. You could even feel guilty just for hiring a babysitter so you can go have a date night, right? Feel selfish. There's 1,000 ways to feel guilty as a parent, especially a working parent. And yet, there's 1,000 opportunities not to. Because like any other emotion, guilt is a choice. You might not agree with me. You might want to argue with me on that one. And that's fine, but it's still true. Okay? It doesn't make it any less true, whether you're comfortable with that thought or not. Whether you want to accept it or not. All of our emotions are choices. Sometimes conscious, sometimes unconscious. Because if they weren't, we would all feel the same way in certain situations. But we all know that's not true. That doesn't even make sense. We all know that 5 different people can all experience the exact same event, but have 5 different reactions and make it mean 5 different things. So the only thing that we can really conclude is that guilt is a choice, like every other emotion. Nobody can actually make you feel anything. You allow yourself to feel emotions. So you allow yourself to feel guilty when you don't meet someone else's expectation. So it may sound like I'm putting it all on you. It's all your fault. And in a way, I am, but in an empowering way. This is actually very good news. Because it means you're in control and you can change it. And this is so much more than just, oh, cheer up, don't feel guilty, it's okay. This is so much deeper than that. This is you being empowered to choose a different emotion and a new reaction and make it mean something else. If you don't meet every obligation, it doesn't mean that you're a failure. It doesn't mean that you're a bad parent. It doesn't mean that you have done anything wrong. It might mean that you need to draw boundaries or change expectations with the people around you or ask for help. There's a multitude of other things we can do besides just feel guilty silently inside, suffering emotionally. If you need to designate one day of the week where the grandparents or a babysitter comes to watch your kids so you can have a day to yourself, guess what? You can do that. And you can choose not to feel guilty about it. You can choose to feel guilty about it, but you can choose not to feel guilty about it. You can go back to work after having a kid and enjoy your job and not feel guilty about putting your kid in daycare. Because some parents don't, right? How is it that other people don't? Isn't that an option for you too? It is. You make the rules, especially when it comes to your emotional health. There's a high degree of personal accountability and responsibility here, but it's a really, really good thing. So here's one thing I know people might be thinking or saying about this. Well, but what about other people's expectations, right? You don't live by yourself in a silo. Of course not. Other people are expecting me to do it all. Other people are expecting me to work full time and pick up the kids from daycare and have dinner on the table by 5 o'clock and look fabulous while I'm doing it and never complain, right? So if they do, it's your responsibility to communicate your rules and your boundaries to those around you and manage that workload that you have and get help when you need it. Set boundaries when you need it. Communicate how you are feeling and set boundaries and expectations with people that you can meet. This could be your boss, it could be your spouse, it could be grandparents. But if you suffer in silence, feeling guilty for all these obligations, honestly, people might think that you're okay and you don't need any help. The change has to start with you. So if someone has what you feel are unrealistic expectations of you, there is a loving but firm, direct way that you can say this. You can tell them, okay, here's what's happening. Here's what you want to happen. Here's all the things that need to get done in the day. Whatever it is, lay out. Here's the situation. But here's my experience of it. Here's what I need in order to be able to meet these obligations. Here's what I need for my mental or emotional health. Do I have your support on this? Try that. Communicate what is happening, what you're able to do, what you're not able to do, where do you need help, and what's the effect it's having on you emotionally. If you're feeling guilt, tell someone. Get help with this and communicate what is happening and be realistic about what you can and cannot do. And then ask for their support. Okay, I want you to think about that for a second. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, I'm going to share with you some of my personal experiences with working mom guilt, being that I'm a working mom. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story and how I choose to handle this. Okay? We'll be right back. Hey there, my listeners. We're on a short break, and I have a question for you. Are you looking for a new job, but you don't know where to start? Or maybe you've been searching and it's taking too long and you're not getting any results. Many clients don't know how to launch an effective job search, and they spend months or even years looking. Well, I have a solution for that. My coaching program, Career Jumpstart, teaches you my proven 3-step strategy that has landed hundreds of clients amazing new jobs in about 60 days. In this program, I personally will guide you on how to confidently and authentically market yourself to employers, resulting in a better job faster. If that sounds like what you've been missing, head over to careeruprising.com and apply for my Career Jumpstart program today. That's careeruprising.com. All right, let's get back to our show. And we are back, guys. We are working our way here through this problem of feeling guilty as a working mom or dad. Okay. So as you guys might know, I talk about my family sometimes on this show. I'm a working parent. I have one kid, less than usual, but we'll talk about that. And she's 10. So I certainly have a frame of reference for this, right? I can relate to this. Sort of. And I'm going to be really honest with you guys that this is an area where I have felt sometimes like I actually don't completely relate to other parents, to other moms. I do and I don't. I understand completely where this guilt seeps in and why and where it comes from, but I handle it differently. And I'm going to share with you my perspective on this, okay? Because it might not be typical. But I'm certainly no stranger to the demands of being a working parent, okay? So in addition to my business, I also have multiple consulting engagements, and I lead my daughter's Girl Scout troop, and I'm on the board at the PTA, and I volunteer sometimes in the classroom as well. So I have quite a few obligations, right? And I'm pulled in a lot of different directions. Now, these are all by choice, right? And at the end of the day, all of our obligations really are by choice, right? Because we're responsible for saying yes and no to things that we can and cannot do. So it all comes back to us in the end. So I've chosen to do all of these things, and I could, if it ever got too much, I could release one of those obligations. I absolutely could. So if the obligations are mine, any guilt I feel towards them, you guessed it, those would be mine too. Absolutely. But I don't actually feel guilt. And there are some of those obligations that I am far more engaged in than others. I show up better in some ways than others because I literally cannot be full on and show up as a 10 in every single one of those areas all the time. I can't do that, right? I'm one person. So I have a lot of boundaries and balance that I have there. But I want to give you a couple of examples of when guilt, the invitation to feel guilty, has presented itself to me. So I love working. I never had the dream of being a stay-at-home mom. It's just not my thing. I think it's a great thing, but it's just never been my desire. And I went back to work just 8 weeks after my daughter was born. And I'm going to be really honest with you guys. I felt really good about it. I really did. I was excited to go back. You know, there's a lot of moms out there who, and I completely understand this, feel like they're dreading going back to work, right? That last day of maternity leave is just like in the dumps. Like you just don't want to go back. And I understand that, but I didn't feel that. I felt refreshed. I felt invigorated. And that first year that I back to work ended up being my most successful year ever. The center that I was managing went on to be number one in the market for sales, for the sales quota performance that year. Boom. It was like life was good. I felt refreshed. I felt invigorated. And I didn't feel guilty. I had my daughter in daycare and has been in some kind of after school care really up until very recently. So from about age 8 weeks to like 9. And I didn't feel guilty. I'm just being really honest. But that's a choice. I could have. The opportunity was there. The thought was there. But I chose not to. With my daughter being a baby in daycare, honestly, I knew her basic needs were met. I did. Even though it wasn't me meeting all of those needs, even though it was somebody else, I did my research. I felt comfortable with the place that I put her in. I was perfectly fine accepting help. Maybe that's just something that's come naturally to me. I don't feel like I need to do it all to be successful. Even for the most precious thing in my life, my kid, I exercised trust and balance. And I still feel really good about that decision. I feel like in a lot of ways, having her in daycare and after school care for a young age set the expectation for her that that was something that was normal. And there was a certain amount of independence, I think, that she grew up with, having that and being away from me for that period of time. You know, mom always worked. No big deal. That was normal. And that's what I wanted her to see as normal. So I felt really good about that decision. Now, I can understand I wasn't home for very long. So for moms or dads out there who maybe stay home for a longer period of time and then try to go back, I can completely see how that might be harder, right? And there might be more guilt with that because the kid is used to having you at home. That can be a tougher transition, but very much still can be done, and it's still a choice at the end of the day. If you don't feel good with the emotion that you're feeling, you basically have two choices. You can try really hard to change your outside circumstances. That's the hard way. Or you can simply choose a new emotion and make it mean something different. We attach meaning to everything in our lives. The meaning doesn't come with it. You know, somebody else could look at me putting my kid in daycare at 8 weeks and make that mean, well, that's irresponsible. Doesn't she want to be with her kid? Why is she letting strangers take care of her kid? That would be their choice to make it mean that. I didn't make it mean that at all. I made it mean I love working. This makes me happy. We need this income. This is a good thing. And I still feel like I have plenty of time with my kid, but I get a break during the day. So I'm not constantly 24/7 just taking care of the kid. I have better balance in my life. So mom's happier. And so everyone's happier. I made it mean that. So do you see how guilt only comes in based on what we're making a situation mean? And you can change that at any time. So here's another, perhaps even bigger opportunity for me to feel really guilty. And that's with my choice to have only one child, which is not the normal thing to do at all. I really know very, very few people who have kids but only have one. It is not the common thing to do. I think I can think of about 2 people in my life who either are an only child or have only had one child. That's it. So it's funny because I think in hindsight, the more I think about it, I guess I really kind of said screw you to a lot of people's expectations on that one, right? Because I did wrestle with this decision for a little bit. Believe me, there were hopes and expectations for more kids. Grandparents wanted more kids, of course. All the friends that I had that were my age, they all had more than one kid. That's like the normal thing to do, right? So there's this kind of looming societal expectation as well. And so then, of course, the biggest one comes with my daughter herself. As she grows older, believe me, I have heard, I wish I had a sibling. Why don't I have a sibling? Everyone else seems to have a sibling. And believe me when I say, it took a firm amount of commitment to my choice to not feel guilty, literally looking my kid in the eye and explaining to her that we simply chose not to give her a brother or sister. It's not like I was infertile. I'm being really honest with you guys right now. That was a choice. So I had to look at her multiple times and try to make, at age 7 or 8-year-old who really wants this thing, try to make her explain that. How easy would it have been to feel guilty about that and regret it? So easy. But I firmly believe in my choice. I stand by it. It's what I wanted. It was best for our family. My husband was totally on board with it. It makes sense for us. And anything less than that is me thinking about the thought of it, not the reality of it. Okay, I know the difference between the thought of something and the reality of something. And that's just not the lifestyle we wanted. I didn't envision myself having a big family. Now, I will say, I did always think I would have more than one kid. I thought 2, I probably would have. I did not set out to have one kid at all. Totally thought I was going to be like everyone else. But it took a firm commitment to me and to my emotions to stand by that and say, no, I feel good with this. We feel complete. This feels right. Even though there was absolutely failed expectations on other people's parts and the opportunity to feel really guilty about it. But I have to remind myself of why I made that decision and choose not to feel guilty over it. And I don't regret it. So there you have it. It's our responsibility to draw boundaries and make choices that reflect the wisdom of our consciousness and design our lives the way we want it. Sometimes that means saying no to things. Sometimes that means asking for help. Sometimes that means changing our expectations or other people's expectations. Okay? Having a large family just didn't align with our vision for our family. We just wanted a flexible lifestyle, be able to save money and travel. And, it's just not what we envisioned. And we've had to stand by that vision. And believe me, I've had conversations. It's interesting with other moms sometimes who will admit, oh my gosh, I probably would have done that too. Like if they had not just succumbed to what other people expect them to do to avoid guilt, they might have made a different choice sometimes. And I think that's a big admission, right? I very much live my life how I want it to. And I've just decided not to feel guilty if that disappoints someone. Quite honestly, it's either, I guess I'm going to disappoint them or disappoint myself, right? Take a pick. So that's my choice. So I also want my daughter to see that mom is the kind of person who stands by her choices and lives her life the way she wants, despite other people's expectations and without feeling guilty. And that, my friends, is available to you as well. Will you choose it? Okay, there you guys have it. I hope that message landed the right way with you. And if you want to be a success story or connect with me or need help with anything in your career, you know where to find me. I'm at careeruprising.com. Stay in touch with me through email, LinkedIn. If you have a career question that you want answered on the air or a topic to propose, I love that. You can email me at Lorraine@careeruprising.com. But have a beautiful day. That's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you heard today, please consider giving the show a positive review on iTunes. It would mean a lot to me, and it would help to spread the word so that others can learn about the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and I can't wait to connect with you again next time on Career Uprising.
This show is brought to you by InflowRadio.com, the best curated talk radio network for personal development, wellness, spirituality, and conscious business.